Alright, let's check this shit. Let's see what we got here in Titanic.
Going to the pharmacy, but do
Loud and clear, Dr. Lynch. You should be nearly at the sea floor. Telemetry looks good. Say 100 meters?
Sounds about right.
Good. Excited?
Yeah, I've seen all the footage, but I mean, it's different to be so close to her.
Ever done anything like this before?
Yeah, Bismarck as a grad student, and Lusitania on vacation a couple of years back.
Hell of a resume.
Alright, I've reached the seabed. Can't see much.
You're still a couple of 100 meters out, and back to manual control. Shall we run an equipment test?
Sure, let's do this by the book.
all right. Let's run through the submersible controls on your wireless controller. If you hold down the circle button, a control diagram will appear in front of you. You can operate the submersible using these controls on your controller.
Okay.
You can move the submersible forward, back, left, and right using the left stick. To make the submersible ascend and descend, push up or down on the right stick. The right stick also controls the sub's rotation left and right.
Great. How do I interact with objects?
You can interact with objects in the submersible by holding down the L2 button and then looking around with your right stick. When you look at an object you can interact with, a green circle will appear. Then just press the cross button. If you ever get stuck, just hold down the circle button again to
Will
bring
do.
up the controls diagram.
Right. Now we'll move on to the map and missions. You'll see in the middle of the console in front of you is a map. It shows your current location as a blue pointer at the bottom of the screen. As you approach the wreck, it will slowly appear on the map. The yellow icon is your current goal location, so you know where you should be heading. I'll update the map and your goal locations as we go through contracts.
Right.
The screen just to the left of the console displays the mission log. It shows your current goal task. So if you aren't sure what you should be doing or looking for, check the mission log and map for more information. Okay, you'd better place a marker before we head too far. Interact with the button next to the map to place one.
Marker's been placed.
You can head towards the bow. So, I had a call from our main sponsor.
Problem?
No, all fine. Just voicing her excitement about us finally diving. Said she's looking forward to seeing what we can do. I've set up a call for 8 p.m. this evening.
For $45,000 a day, let's just hope we find something.
Never mind the money. My doctorate is riding on this.
Right, I should get my lights ready now that I'm getting close to the bow.
You can control the movement of the sub's lights by using the up, down, left, and right buttons on your controller. To turn the spotlights on and off, interact with the button in front of the lever.
Whoa,
There's something you don't see every day.
she's a beauty.
Okay, first things first. We've got a contract with the Titanic Society to place their commemorative plaque on the forecastle deck. Get yourself into position.
All right. Coming up to it now.
You'll need the Predator for this task.
Ah, the ROV.
Yep, courtesy of Flight Avionics and the latest in augmented reality technology. If you look up, you'll find a set of VR goggles and a control panel.
To deploy
The controls to maneuver the Predator are the same as the submersible. Make your way over to the plaques already laying on the deck, and remember that the range is only up to 15 meters. The advantage of driving without an umbilical.
Is there any way to boost the signal?
Yeah, but we need to upgrade the deep-sea transmitter, and they don't come cheap. The generosity of our sponsors and UNS funding only goes so far. If we complete these contract jobs, we might just be able to afford some upgrades.
What happens if I go out of range?
The automatic recall kicks in. ROV comes straight back to the sub.
I'm here.
Great. The plaque we're placing is in the Predator's inventory. You can access it through the menu.
Ah, how do I open the menu?
You can open the
I'll take a
menu
photograph
by
of the
pressing
inventory.
and releasing the info button.
Great idea. They'll appreciate that. You can access the camera through the ROV inventory. Open up the menu again and select the camera icon from the inventory screen.
Press the cross button to take a photograph. You can get out of camera mode by pressing and releasing the info button again.
Done. I'll head back to Sedna.
No need. Just press the triangle button on your controller.
Now you're back in the sub. Recall the ROV by pressing the button next to the ROV goggles. It's above you on the right.
Where to now?
Hull breach on E deck. I'll mark it on your map.
We're heading for his cabin, right?
That's right. Eyewitness testimony said Henderson kept a journal. It should tell us more about his activities on the final night.
I presume I'm looking for some kind of trunk.
Henderson had a briefcase listed on the manifest. With any luck, it's still in his room.
Alright, here we go. Let's run this jellyfish over.
Dr. Lynch,
Yeah?
why are we doing this?
$45,000 a day at sea.
No, I know, but that just about covers the costs of the expedition. I meant, like, why are we taking this job in particular?
Well, put it this way.
$45,000,
Why do you
come
think
on,
she
dude.
hired us?
Because we're academics?
Yes, but more specifically, we respect the history. It would have been cheaper for our sponsor to just hire a salvage team.
And why do you agree to take it?
Funding like this comes once in the
This
blue
breach
moon,
is from the
and
impact
I
of
wanted
the
to see her
ocean
up
floor.
close.
Anything in here is going to be messy.
I'll keep my eyes peeled.
It's towards the top of the breach. Look for the flashing beacon. I really hope his briefcase is there.
What's going on here? I'm not going to the rover for some reason. What's that do? I'm not in the rover. Why is this doing that?
Sounds about right.
Good. Excited?
Yeah, I've seen all the footage, but I mean, it's different to be so close to her.
Ever done anything like this before?
Yeah, Bismarck as a grad student, and Lusitania on vacation a couple of years back.
Hell of a resume.
Alright, I've reached the seabed. Can't see much.
You're still a couple of 100 meters out, and back to manual control. Shall we run an equipment test?
That's alright. I'm good.
Okay, you'd better place a marker before we head too far. Interact with the
Marker's
button
been
next to
placed.
the map to place one. You can head towards the bow. So, I had a call from our main sponsor.
Problem?
No, all fine. Just voicing her excitement about us finally diving. Said she's looking forward to seeing what we can do. I've set up a call for 8 p.m. this evening.
For $45,000 a day, let's just hope we find something.
Never mind the money. My doctorate is riding on this.
Right, I should get my lights ready now that I'm getting close to the bow.
You can control the movement of the sub's lights by using the up, down, left, and right buttons on your controller. To turn the spotlights on and off, interact with the button in front of the lever.
Whoa,
There's something you don't see every day.
she's a beauty.
Okay, first things first. We've got a contract with the Titanic Society to place their commemorative plaque on the forecastle deck. Get yourself into position.
Alright. Coming up to it now.
You'll need the Predator for this task.
Ah, the ROV.
Yep, courtesy of Flight Avionics and the latest in augmented reality technology. If you look up, you'll find a set of VR goggles and a control panel. The controls to maneuver the Predator are the same as the submersible. Make your way over to the plaques already laying on the deck, and remember that the range is only up to 15 meters. The advantage of driving without an umbilical.
Is there any way to boost the signal?
Yeah, but we need to upgrade the deep-sea transmitter, and they don't come cheap. The generosity of our sponsors and UNS funding only goes so far. If we complete these contract jobs, we might just be able to afford some upgrades.
What happens if I go out of range?
The automatic recall kicks in. ROV comes straight back to the sub.
I'm here.
Great! The plaque we're placing is in the Predator's inventory. You can access it through the menu.
Ah, how do I open the menu? I'll take a photograph with the onboard camera for the Society.
Press the cross button to take a photograph. You can get out of camera mode by pressing and releasing the No need. Just press the triangle button on your controller. This is the return button.
Now you're back in the sub. Recall the ROV by pressing the button next to the ROV goggles. It's above you on the right.
Where to now?
Hull breach on E-deck. I'll mark it on your map.
We're heading for his cabin, right?
That's right. Eyewitness testimony said Henderson kept a journal. It should tell us more about his activities on the final night.
I presume I'm looking for some kind of trunk.
Dr. Lynch,
Yeah?
why are we doing this?
$45,000 a day at sea.
No, I know, but that just about covers the costs of the expedition. I meant, like, why are we taking this job in particular?
Well, put it this way. Why do you think she hired us?
Because we're academics?
Yes, but more specifically, we respect the history. It would have been cheaper for our sponsor to just hire a salvage team.
And why'd you agree to take it?
Funding like this comes once in a blue moon, and I wanted to see her up close.
This breach is from the impact with the ocean floor. Anything in here is going to be messy.
I'll keep my eyes peeled.
It's towards the top of the breach. Look for the flashing beacon. I really hope his briefcase is there.
found a briefcase. I just need to pick it up by pressing the cross...
WJH. I think this is it.
Well, that's lucky. Are you going to open it?
No, not here. Assuming there's anything intact in there, it'll start degrading as soon as I open the case. I'll have to bring it back to the lab before we can take a peek.
Okay, you should put the briefcase in the Predator's storage then. Just open and close the menu again by pressing and releasing the info button. The briefcase will appear in the ROV's inventory as a selectable item, and you'll have your hands free again.
Right. If this is the last task for today, I'll head back to the lab now.
Yep, just return to the submersible and you can head up. Let's get you to the surface. Activate the autopilot and get comfortable.
Alright, I'll see you in about 2 hours.
Whoa, looks to be in good condition.
Let's get this cleaned up. This journal is pretty special. The pages seem to be a fabric paper blend. I think the desalination bath will leach out the salt. Then it can go into the PEG station before freeze drying. Looks like a receipt for a telegraph sent on the night of April 14th.
That's strange. I haven't found any reference to one being sent. I wonder what it said. Here's our sponsor. We can tell her the news.
Hi, team. How are you both?
Hi, Gillian. We're doing great.
We've just finished cleaning the artifacts we found today. We managed to access Henderson's cabin and retrieve his briefcase.
Wonderful.
Inside we found his journal, a few personal items still in good condition. One interesting item is a receipt for a telegraph sent on the night of the sinking.
Oh, that is interesting. I didn't know William sent a message.
That's what we thought.
It's possible it wasn't sent, and that it's still in either the purser's office or the Marconi room. We're thinking our next dive should be to explore these rooms.
I know teams have searched the Marconi room before, but I didn't think the purser's office was accessible.
Yeah, up till now it's been off limits due to the size of ROVs, but ours is small enough to access it. We're hoping we might find the purser's record book, with the message listed.
As for the Marconi room, other dives have shown most of the furniture is deteriorated, but the telegraph canisters might have survived.
Sounds plausible. Let me know if you find anything. I'd love to see the message he sent. I've only the letters from Southampton.
I noticed something odd in his journal. On the 14th he mentions carrying some special package, but I'm sure he didn't have anything reported in the manifest. Do you have any idea what it could be?
Well, in his last letter, he wrote about returning home with a present for my great-grandmother. I'll do a bit of research on my end. I can check over the manifest again to see if we missed anything.
Great, we'll let you know if we find anything tomorrow. I'm sending over photos of the items we found today.
Thanks, I really appreciate the regular updates. It's making writing much easier. We'll talk again soon.
Well, shall we call it a day?
Not quite. Gillian was kind enough to order in a stronger transmitter for our ROV. We'll need to fit it before the dive tomorrow. Otherwise, we won't be able to reach the purser's office.
I'll get on it now then.
It's waiting
I need to
for you
replace
over
the
there.
transmitter in the Thanks. I need to replace the transmitter in the ROV with the one on the table next to it. I need to lift the black hood to place the transmitter, then lift the bar up to put the sample container in the storage compartment. She's all ready to go for tomorrow.
Cool. I'll see you in the morning then.
Radio check, Wilson.
Coming in nice and clear, Dr. Lynch.
Great. First up is the purser's office on C deck, correct?
Correct. To access it, you'll need to head down through the hole where the forward grand staircase was. I'll mark it on your map.
The C deck is pretty compressed from what I've heard.
Yeah, the impact with the sea floor vent.
Welcome to the Titanic VR guided tour. We are currently 3.8 kilometres below the surface of the North Atlantic and 100 metres east of the bow. This submersible is on autopilot. However, you can adjust your spotlight using the far left lever. Please keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times. I'll provide you with information about locations as we pass them, so please sit back, relax and enjoy the ride.
The RMS Titanic was the second White Star Line Olympic-class ocean liner, the first being RMS Olympic and the third being HMHS Britannic. She was 269 metres long, 28 metres wide and 72 metres tall from the bottom of her keel to the top of her masts. At 46,328 tonnes, she was the largest ship built at the time, being only slightly bigger than Olympic. She would be servicing the transatlantic route, a journey from Southampton, England to New York, USA. She stops at Cherbourg, France and Queenstown, Ireland. After departing Queenstown on the afternoon of Thursday, the 11th of April, RMS Titanic began her 5,360 kilometre journey to New York City. She was due to arrive in the early hours of Wednesday, the 17th of April, but with calm ocean conditions and good weather, it was possible she could arrive early on Tuesday evening instead. The night of the 14th of April was moonless, and a light fog was developing on the horizon. Titanic's captain, Edward Smith, had received a number of ice warnings during the day and had changed their course so they were further south to avoid the affected areas. The captain retired to bed, and First Officer William Murdoch took charge of the bridge as officer of the watch. Titanic steamed ahead until 11:40 p.m, when the lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee spotted an iceberg directly ahead. Fleet rang the warning bell 3 times to indicate an obstacle ahead and phoned the bridge. Murdoch gave the order, hard a starboard, and the ship turned to port, but it was too late. Titanic struck the iceberg on her starboard side. The impact buckled hull plates and sheared rivets, revealing her first 6 compartments to the ocean. As the iceberg slid down the side of the ship, Murdoch ordered a hard a port, swinging a Titanic stern out of the path of the iceberg. He also closed the watertight doors, isolating the flooding to those damaged compartments. The forward 3 hatches, along with the peak tank and boiler rooms 5 and 6, were breached. After the collision, RMS Titanic stopped and almost immediately took a starboard list. The captain organised a group to inspect the damage and ordered the carpenter John Maxwell to sound the ship. Chief designer Thomas Andrews knew the volume of each breached compartment and calculated that the initial flooding rate was around 15,000 tonnes within the first 40 minutes. With this information, he estimated Titanic would sink within 90 minutes. He then informed the captain, who then ordered the officers to begin preparing the lifeboats. All free seamen were sent up to the boat deck to begin pulling the covers off the lifeboats and to collect lanterns, blankets, food and water for the passengers. Passengers were woken by their stewards and told to put on their life belts and head up to the boat deck. Titanic carried just 20 lifeboats, 4 more than required by the regulations outlined by the British Board of Trade. There were 14 regular wooden lifeboats, 2 smaller cutters and 4 Engelhart collapsible boats. The total capacity of these lifeboats was only 1,178 people, far less than the total on board. This fact must have weighed heavily on the captain's mind, as he specified the boats to be filled with women and children first. Just over an hour after the collision, the first lifeboat left the sinking ship. To convince women to leave, officers tried assuring them it was only a precaution, that they would be back on board by daylight. First Officer Murdoch filled the starboard side, while Second Officer Charles Lightoller filled port. The officers interpreted the captain's women and children first order differently, with Murdoch putting men into the boats after all the women and children near the boat had entered. Lightoller, on the other hand, only allowed women and children to enter the boats and refused all men and boys over 14 years old. By 1:45 a.m, Titanic was down by about 5 degrees to the head, with the forecastle almost underwater. Panic began to rise through the passengers still on deck as they watched boat after boat launch. A few male passengers were physically removed from stern portside lifeboats 14 and 16, and 5th Officer Harold Lowe warned other men not to approach by firing his pistol into the water below. The situation at the starboard bow was similar, with a group of men storming collapsible C. Murdoch fired his pistol twice to warn them to move back from the lifeboat, and they were dragged out by other male passengers. A large group of third-class women and children took their place, along with a few seamen and the owner of White Star Line, Joseph Bruce Ismay. In the radio room, Titanic's Marconi operators were desperately communicating with nearby stations and ships. Throughout the night, senior operator Jack Phillips worked the 5-kilowatt Marconi wireless radio set to send out distress signals using both the old CQD and new SOS call codes. He alerted nearby ships to their position and status, and received updates of ship locations and estimated arrival times. Junior operator Harold Bride took these updates to Captain Smith and passed the captain's responses back to Phillips for transmission. RMS Carpathia radio operator Harold Cotton was off duty and about to go to bed when he decided to listen in to the nightly news from Cape Cod. Operators there mentioned they had ice warnings for Titanic, and Cotton decided to pass on the message. He was surprised when Phillips responded to his call with a CQD and gave Titanic's location. Cottam immediately took the message to Carpathia's captain, Arthur Rostron, who ordered all hands on deck and told Cottam to let Titanic know they were on their way. As the water reached the boat deck, the operators left their station, with Bride heading towards the port bow and Phillips to the starboard stern. Murdoch and 6th Officer James Moody were standing on the starboard side, loading collapsible A into the davits. Lightoller was on the officers' quarters rooftop, removing collapsible B, when the bridge suddenly ducked under the surface. Waves washed over the decks, carrying people and the collapsible lifeboats into the ocean. The forward funnel collapsed at its base, with the resulting wave crushing the starboard bridge wing and those swimming in the water nearby. The stern rose out of the water, peaking at an angle of around 15 degrees. This placed stress on Titanic's keel, which buckled and twisted, tearing the ship in half and sending the waterlogged bow plummeting to the ocean floor. The tear wasn't clean, with decks failing to hold on at varying positions. The stern, now rapidly filling with water, bobbed on the surface for a few minutes before slipping under. RMS Titanic was carrying an estimated 2,208 passengers and crew, with only 712 surviving the disaster. Those who survived spent the night floating in darkness until RMS Carpathia arrived around 4 a.m. Captain Rostron had pushed the Cunard liner to break her speed record, but it wasn't enough. Titanic had sunk before Carpathia arrived, and they found 20 lifeboats at Titanic's location. Unfortunately, the exact number of victims is unknown, as there were many last-minute ticket purchases and cancellations, and that documentation was lost along with the ship. Of the 1,317 known passengers, over half were travelling third class or steerage as it was known. These passengers couldn't access the boat deck without entering second class or crew areas, meaning many were unaware how to get to the lifeboats and escape the sinking ship. First and second class passengers had no issues making their way to the boat deck, as staircases provided both classes direct access. Many expeditions to find and raise the wreck were proposed over the years, with the exact location of her wreck being unknown. Titanic's coordinates sent out in distress on the night of the accident had been incorrect. On the 1st of September 1985, a Canadian-French team were searching the area when Dr. Robert Ballard came across some small debris. He followed the trail, which led him to a boiler and eventually the wreck. His discovery confirmed suspicions that Titanic had in fact split, and there was no hope of raising the wreck as a whole. Scientists and historians have long argued for and against the recovery of artefacts from the site, with many agreeing the site should be treated as a mass grave. Although it's predicted Titanic's wreck will disintegrate within the next 20 years, her story will intrigue generations to come.